Good morning, my friends. Thank you for being here. We know you've got many choices to make every single day, and we're always so very, very grateful that you choose to spend some time with us. So thank you very much. You know the drill. Tapping is clapping, liking is loving, sharing is caring. Please consider joining our team. We are crowd-funded around here. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so through the various appetizer apps, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. Everything is all at Factsstillmatter. If you'd like me to read something, I will. I'll do better at that. Sometimes I forget to mention names, but I'm always grateful. Never expected, always appreciated. There's also a gifting goal today. Help us get to the FYP. We will likely get our daily restriction that we get every single day. As a reminder, if you've not yet joined our Discord, please consider doing that. You'll find the link in the link tree in my bio, or you can ask one of our moderators and they can help you out. While you're in the link tree, you can find the link to the Facts merch store, which is at Facts HQ or factsstillmatter.site. All kinds of new merch, including this one, PBS, NPR, FDT. We have a brand new merch item in the merch store. It's the Progressive in Your Pocket shirt. And who knows, Kipper might even make an appearance on that particular piece of clothing. All proceeds from the sales of that item goes to an organization that supports Black women, moms in particular. So go check it out. Again, all the proceeds from the sale of that shirt will go directly to that cause. And I want to thank our friend Ash for bringing that to our attention, her idea regarding the shirt, and we will do what we can. So thank you all for being here. A lot to cover today. Let me see. Is there anything else that I wanted to mention? We'll get to it. Obviously, the news of the day is the vote. The reason, first of all, the background behind me today is because we're going to talk about Christian nationalism today. And to me, I thought about this, and it's like the underlying vein to everything that's happening. In particular, the diminishing of women in our society. I've got some sound that some of you may have heard in the past, some of you may not have, that kind of speaks to exactly that, right? How that people who prescribe to the Christian nationalism theory are seeing the demographic changes in our country and are concerned. We'll talk about, I think his name is Jordan Taylor, and he had an infamous interview with Eddie Huang. We'll play that sound. We'll talk about some of these communities that are popping up all across the country, in Appalachia, in the far west, that is white only. And not only is it white only, you can't even be Jewish and join. So it becomes this really, this clear divide as to how Christian nationalists see our society, and the rest of us don't. And in conversations that we've had in this space with non-Christian nationalist Christians, they're like, these Christian nationalists are hijacking our faith. Y'all know how I feel about organized religion in general. I don't judge, but please don't cast your Christian nationalist belief set on the rest of us, so that we can live in the nation that we are free to practice or not practice whatever it is that we choose. So we'll get into that today. First, I want to talk about, obviously we're going to continue to talk about the Easting stuff. And now, because we have this, this statement from the president yesterday or the night before last, encouraging all Republicans to vote for the discharge petition today. Now, I don't know what that means. Does that mean all 430? I think it's 433 current sitting voting members of the House, because there's two vacancies, one in Tennessee and one in, where's the other one? It escapes me. Texas? Yeah, Texas. Yes. So I'm trying to think about what this means, what the symbolism it is of him encouraging people to do this. And this is kind of where I landed. Again, my opinion alone. Everybody keep tapping and sharing, please. Liking is loving, tapping is clapping, sharing is caring. Don't forget, there's a gifting goal today. Help us out there. The idea behind him making that statement is thank Oslo. Made a post about how. Yeah, you're right. So it's a political decision. So I've always, one of the things this will be studied for decades to come from a political science perspective, is the amazing amount of loyalty that Trump has been able to procure from his base. We call it a cult. You can call it whatever you want. I've never seen anything like it. It's devotion beyond anything that's normal, because we should never worship our politicians. If you want to idolize people, like maybe idolize teachers or physicians or activists, people like that, but don't admire, don't worship politicians. Like, you can have respect for somebody, you can admire their work, but don't just don't worship them. So that part has been really fascinating. And it's always worked up until this particular point, right? Up until this point in time now. And I'll kind of give you a little bit of the breakdown, which goes back to my reasoning behind what I think is going on here. We can draw some conclusions. So that level of loyalty, like we've never seen before. And like I said, it's always worked. He's always been able to throw the dogs off the scent, so to speak. Getting people to not pay attention to the reality and just believe what he says. I've used this analogy before. It's like the gold watch or the eyes of the snake in Jungle Book, right? Trust in me. It's always seemed to work. The problem now, though, is one of the things that he ran on the first time and this time was draining the swamp, talking about transparency. Well, people are like, well, hold on a second here. If you're talking about transparency, then why aren't we seeing everything? Every step along the way, excuse me, my apologies, guys. Every step along the way, he's called it either a hoax or it was made up or my name's not in it or there's no birthday book. You guys know the story. And I'm going to go through the timeline a little bit today because there's some things that I don't know if people are covering this enough. One of the things that I'm focused on is the contradictions that he's made about their relationship. And when it's severed, him making a claim that for 15 years they had no contact. Well, we know that that's not true from the statements. And the weird part now that MAGA finds themselves in is that they don't want to believe the Jeffrey emails when Trump's name's mentioned, but they want to believe the emails when Bill Clinton's or Larry Summers' names or whoever else's name is mentioned. So they're in this really weird spot, which goes back to, again, the loyalty. Not only is this lack of transparency troubling them, because within MAGA, there's cracks, because they're like, wait a second. I think about Candace Owens. I think about others. I think about Tucker. I think a lot of prominent voices on the right are like, you promised this. You promised this us, bro. You promised us this, bro. You told us before you were elected that you're going to release the files. You told us in January you're going to release the files. Your Department of Justice said they're going to release the files. And now you're literally doing everything you can to not release the files. Add that to the fact that people are starting to see through the facade about prices. You get Kevin Hassett, you get Scott Bessent, you get the President of the United States looking in the camera and telling American voters that your prices are down for everything. And their voters are finally like, well, that's not true. My prices are up. There's the few oddballs out there that'd be like, yeah, I paid $7 for eggs 2 days ago and $14 today, but my prices are down, or whatever the analogy is. My truck nut polish. So they're starting to see it. So you get that. You get this lack of transparency. Going after the deep state. If you're going after the deep state, then let's go after the deep state. Then you get the economic conditions. Then you get this promise of, a 50-year mortgage. And people are like, wait, 50-year mortgage, I'm going to pay for a $400,000 house. I'm going to pay an additional $500,000 just in interest over 50 years. And I'll be dead before I pay off my mortgage. So all these things, I think, are now catching up to him. So it is my belief that the reason that he is encouraging, lack of a better term, encouraging Republicans in the Senate and the House to vote for this is so that he can get a political win. And what do I mean? It means that the power of Trump. See, I told all the Republicans to go ahead and vote for it, and they did. So to MAGA, that's like, see, he's got nothing to hide. He's telling them to vote. And many of them will believe it, right? Many of them will believe it. But many of them won't. And I think this is where he's in a very interesting pickle, because we've got the oversight documents that are coming out every single day. And I've been trying to keep up. It's impossible. I'll do my best. There's a few things that have come out recently that we'll talk about today. The argument that the right is trying to make is that the reason that we don't have things currently is because of obstructionism by Democratic judges. I jumped on a live just yesterday afternoon. I was invited up, and person who's trying to say, well, I'm just talking about the facts. So here's a little tip for you. When you hear people on the right trying to defend the requests made by the Trump Justice Department to the judges, saying, well, these are Democrat judges, they obstructed it. We have more context to that story, as you guys know, because each one of the judges, Judge Berman, Judge Engelmeyer, and Judge Rothburn or Rothschild, I can't remember exactly, they all said the same thing. The Department of Justice did not meet the standard for grand jury testimony release. They all said the same thing. So it's not Democratic judges. It's the judges who happen to be appointed by Democratic presidents who all three said, you're violating the rules here. This is not something you can get. And even in Todd Blanche's request to the courts, he knew in his request that he's not going to meet the standard. So there's that. And then in response to those requests, the judges said, the DOJ has over 100,000 pages of documents that they can release right now. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this little guy. This is funny. Okay, little guy. Okay. Prices are coming down. Where? Anywho, so that's an example, right? So you've got this, this confluence of activity in MAGA circles. Promised lower prices, didn't happen. Promised no new wars. Now you've got warships off the coast of Venezuela and they're talking about regime change. Promises of this, promises of that, but the biggest promise of all, in my opinion, from a political perspective, was the promise to drain the swamp. And part of draining the swamp would be transparency. Caroline Leavitt's gone on the record numerous times saying that Trump is the most transparent president of all time. We know it's just not true. So the argument is not working. So they need another solution. And in my opinion, strictly my opinion, there has been reporting of data sanitizing facilities. I cannot corroborate. I can only talk about what it is that we know. Data sanitizing facilities, right? Where select records can be sanitized. That's a problem for them being the Trump administration. That's a problem for them because we've got the oversight committee doing their work, right? We've got the oversight committee releasing over 20,000 or more emails. And of the 20,000 that was released, Donald Trump's name appeared more than anybody else's with the exception of J.E. and Ghislaine Maxwell. So, they're in a weird spot because they can continue to claim Democratic hoax, but the oversight committee is chaired by a Republican. They've been part of that push to get data released. This is coming from the Jeffrey estate. It's not coming from, the fake news or whatever else. It's coming from the estate. So how do they spin this to their base? I think the only way they can do it, in my opinion, is to hold out hope that many of his followers, because he needs the fuel for his narcissistic ego. He needs the fuel. He needs the adoration. He needs the love of his followers, literally the cult-like behavior, to continue the charade, because without them, he's done. Because there is no MAGA Trumpism without his cult, period. So if he loses them, it's game over. So the people behind him, especially those behind J.D. Vance, in the push for the future of the theocratic Republican Party, fueled by Christian nationalists, which is why I want to talk about it today, is on the line. Which is why I always say that, the 25th Amendment is in the back pocket. So there's conversations about whether or not he would resign, just to kind of clear the decks for people so they can move off this topic, ask for a full pardon. He is likely going to get away with these crimes because he's in a unique position compared to everybody else that may be connected. He has the ability to pardon, whether he pardons himself or has someone else pardon him. That will then lead me to, I want to go back and we're going to visit some of the J6 pardons because shockingly, some of the people that were pardoned in regard to their insurrectionist, traitorous acts, trying to overthrow the government back on January 6, 2021, you'll be surprised that some of them had, sexual assault charges against minors. Some of them incredibly disturbing, and that those people were pardoned. So that's why I'm saying the Christian nationalist bubble, undercurrent behind everything, for Christians, nationalists, to ignore what's going on tells you one thing and one thing only. They don't give a shit. They just want power. They do not care. They're the ones that are trying to justify child grooming. They're the ones that are perpetrating crimes against kids. They're the ones that believe that it doesn't matter. Women have no standing in our society unless they're at home, barefoot and pregnant, literally. So the lengths to which they will go to try to, lack of a better word, justify this is staggering. We can never forget that this is the fuel behind the fire. Truth Seeker, prove it. We can prove it, Truth Seeker. That's why we want the files. You should prove it, Truth Seeker. You're the one that's holding it up. You're the one that supports a predator. Do better. So, what time is the vote today? I don't know what time it is. I think it's on the agenda. So it will be today. If that's the case, if it's during our show, we'll check in and try to get the totals. But the number we're looking for is 290, veto proof. We've talked about this. But there was an interview. He's been doing the rounds, and he was interviewed by Garrett Hake, I think. This is a good question that he asked. See if I can find it. I'm going to play some wild sound for you guys from Newsmax and the things that they're trying to do to try to spin this. And you can tell that they don't have their story. They're not consistent on their stories. And that's the weird part, right? You've got Republicans saying that nobody really cares about the Epstein files. Like, yeah, everybody does actually care. That's why people are talking about it. People on the right care about it too. He's not willing to admit that, he being the president, because he doesn't want to give it oxygen, so to speak. Let me see if I can find this one sound that I wanted to play for you. Because it's telling to me, right? It's telling that this is where we are in this cycle now, because he's so desperate to get people literally off the scent that he's got to lean in on the old script. And the old script has always been, they'll believe whatever I tell them. And it's just not really working. Did I delete that? I don't think I did. Hang on, give me a second. Apologies. Everybody keep tapping. Liking is loving, tapping is clapping, sharing is caring. Please don't forget there's a gifting goal today, if you wouldn't mind. Help us with that. Is this the one? I'll just play it. I've got a few.
Urged House Republicans to vote in favor of this Epstein release bill they're going to vote on tomorrow. I just want to be super clear on your position. Do you want to see that pass the Senate? Would you sign that bill if it gets to your desk?
I do want to say, here's what I want. We have
Okay, it's a non-answer. Would you sign if it got to your desk? It's a non-answer.
Nothing to do with Epstein. The Democrats did. All of his friends were Democrats.
Okay, I'm going to pause there for a second. You heard that statement. All of his friends were Democrats. When you're stuck in this cycle of all the pictures that we've seen of them together, palling around in clubs back in the 90s in New York City, numerous conversations together, and then the Bulwark, through interviews with Michael Wolff just last year, released this.
Asked by Michael Wolff how Epstein knew all of this, Epstein responds, quote, "I was Donald's closest friend for 10 years. Epstein says on the tape, per The Beast, that Trump had an elaborate scheme to procure sex as friends' wives, and goes into detail about how Mr. Trump allegedly did this, supposedly by getting the husband to agree on the phone to cheat on his wife with a young woman that Trump would procure, while the wife was secretly listening to that conversation. Then Epstein reportedly claims that Trump would say to the wife, "See, he's a bad guy. Why not consider sex with me?" Asked by...
So, yeah. So that doesn't...
The word skedaddle.
Sorry, that doesn't apply now, does it? So when Trump calls E a terrific guy, when J.E. refers to Donald as his closest friend, or Donald referred to J.E. as reported by Michael Wolff in his book, we've heard the audio tape, as his closest friend, you lose the argument. You lose the argument. So instead, they're just going to continue to double down, and they're going to hope that people don't see the truth. So I'll go back to the sound.
We've already given, I believe the number is 50,000 pages. 50,000 pages. And it's just a Russia hoax as it pertains to the Republicans. Now, I believe that some of the people that we mentioned are being looked at very seriously for their relationship to Jeffrey Epstein, but they were with him all the time. I wasn't at all. And we'll see what happens. What I just don't want Epstein to do is detract from the great success of the Republican Party.
You see, don't look here. Don't look at this. And again, to say that, we didn't spend any time together. We've got photos, we've got videos, we've got all this stuff. We've got his signature on a birthday card. How is it that people are still going to believe this? There's people going to be in our chat today. They're going to I don't know what story you're going to make up. For the president to say that we didn't hang out together, we have pictures. Well, we have evidence that they hung out together. Trump called him a terrific guy. Epstein said that Trump referred to him as his closest friend. You can't run from this. So the question is, what are his followers going to do? What followers? Notice I don't say voters. I say followers because it's different. So they're kind of, I don't like to have to talk about this every day, but I made a commitment that we would because this story is big because it touches everybody. None of us on the left, people, not even everybody on the left, just people who have any kind of, character at all, want all the truth to come out. But there's still this chunk of people that are just trying to find ways to pivot around it. And for people up here calling, this is what happens when you don't have all the information, right? Our brains tend to fill the gaps and we make assumptions and we don't have all the information. And that's what a lot of people are doing right now. So what the right is assuming, because there's no direct links to crimes against kids, so they say in these emails, they're assuming that he's not involved, that he's just part of the transparency approach to blow the cover off this stuff. People on the other side say our assumptions again, because we don't have anything directly that connects him to these crimes. We've got some statements that are pretty damning. We're thinking, look at all this evidence. Look at all the things that he said about women. Look at this plot that he set up, part of the pussy committee that he worked on with J.E. that Michael Wolff has talked about. Look at all the statements he said about young girls. We've got reporting that there's photographs that Epstein showed Michael Wolff of young girls, topless young girls, sitting on his lap with a stain on his pants. References to Bubba. Things that he said about his daughter. Things he said about a 10-year-old girl. So our assumption is, I don't need any more evidence. And people on the right are now saying, well, that's defamatory. We hope that Trump sues you. Go ahead. Sue me. Let's go through discovery. I have no problem with that. So this is what happens. This is why every single American should be demanding that the data that resides under the protection of the DOJ be released. It's not under judicial review. That's been debunked by the judges in this case. They can release everything right now. You don't need Congress. They don't need the discharge petition. They don't need this vote. They could release the information right now if they wanted to. So why aren't they? Why aren't they? You're right, Denise. He is delusional. Why aren't they? That's the question that all of us should be asking. So I don't know. I'll be curious, to be honest, about that vote today. I'll be curious. He's got cover. Every Republican in the House and Senate now has cover. They all do. So you'll be watching. And keep in mind, when Tim Burchett, dadgummit, lied to you guys, saying that Democrats blocked the unanimous consent vote, that is just not true. We dunked on that yesterday as well by playing the audio. Rep. Womack from Arkansas was the Speaker of the House at the time. He's the one that called out Burchett twice, saying, no, your unanimous consent request does not abide by House rules. House rules, by the way, determined by the Republican Party, because the party in the majority is the ones that set the rules. And, oh, by the way, the unanimous consent is a secret vote, basically. It just doesn't require anybody to go public. So what are you afraid of, Tim? But now they've got permission from the big guy. He's told them that I want you to vote for it. If that's the case in the Senate, then you get the Senate votes. And then what happens when that hits his desk? Does he sign it or does he veto it? And then that brings us to the whole Department of Justice component. Don't forget, as we've been trying to explain to our friends on the right, the reason that a lot of the information that exists in the hands of the DOJ now was not released during the Biden administration is because there was an open investigation. There was still a case happening for Ghislaine Maxwell. All right. There's still a case happening for Ghislaine Maxwell. That's the reason why. So if this is the case, if and when the Trump administration says we can't release these files because there's an open investigation, what's MAGA going to say then? It's the same argument. So they're really in a tough spot. I don't know what's going to happen. But we'll track it. The thing that I'm thinking about from a political side, from just strictly from the political strategy side, is if they get enough votes, it becomes veto proof. So you need 2/3 in the House, which would be 290 votes. Remember, 290 would be 2/3 of 435, the full voting block. We'll see. But there's a couple of other stories that reminded me about this that we'll get into today. So the House is scheduled to vote today. The House was expected to vote, or is expected. This came out yesterday. I'm sorry, 5 o'clock this morning. House is expected to vote overwhelmingly on Tuesday to demand that the JD, Justice Department, release all files related to its investigation into JE, an action the House worked for months to avoid. After President Trump reversed himself on the matter and called on it, this is reported from the New York Times, by the way. On his reporting to block the bill, Republicans in Congress distanced themselves from the past efforts to kill or at least slow walk the measure and embraced a bill they claim to have supported from the beginning. In their upside-down telling, Mr. Trump, who pushed hard to head off the vote, had consistently fought for the release of the Epstein files, and so had they. This is the spin. Quote, "It's going to be an important vote to continue to show the transparency that we've delivered," said Steve Scalise, number 2 House Republican. Steve, you didn't vote for the discharge petition, a signature. You didn't sign it. You did not sign it. You're not one of the 4 Republicans who crossed over and signed it. So you can't sit here now and say you could have gone public. You could have gone out and spoken to your voters, but you didn't. You could have taken questions from the press, but you didn't. This is the gaslight. It continues. Previously, Republican leaders had said that the measure was unnecessary given that a House committee investigating the handling of the Epstein case, and they claimed that it did not adequately protect identities of his victims. Remember, what the Oversight Committee is doing is separate than what this discharge petition is intended to do. The Oversight Committee is doing their thing. The discharge petition directly goes after what the Department of Justice has. We know that, right? We know that. So back to, I'll finish this part in a second, but just for clarification purposes, Mr. Trump had said, hang on one second here. Let me get this. Did that just crash on me? I hope that's not the case. I'll go back to that in a second. Let me just finish the story. Never mind, the Republicans have worked for months to block a vote wary of crossing eventual president. Mr. Trump dismissed the documents as part of the hoax, ordered the White House officials to tell lawmakers that any move to advance a vote on the Epstein files would be viewed as, quote, a hostile act. Remember that? With a unanimous vote on the matter now appearing likely, we don't know, they sought to erase all of that old drama. Representative Anna Paulina Luna, who is out there from Florida, who supported the discharge petition initially, but later backed down and did not sign it, insisted that, quote, no one convinced President Trump to reverse course on the matter. Quote, he's always been consistent on this. It has been made very apparent that this was used to smear him, and I am not the only one that feels that way. What's the smear? Like, I don't understand the smear. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, what's the smear? These emails that were released, these were private emails. This was the exchange that happened, right? This was the exchange. This again released by the Epstein estate. We know that to be true. Keep in mind when they talk about the 50,000 documents that were released, and I pulled some data on that. The information that was released by the Justice Department so far through subpoena was information that was already public. Like 98% of the information that was already public. So I don't know what lie or what they expect people to believe when the information that we have from the Department of Justice, 95% or more, was already public. So nothing new has come out. So this is that Stonewall that we've been talking about. Let me just do one thing real quick, guys. Having a little technical issues today, but I can I'll make it. My notes have suddenly disappeared, but that's fine. I can punt. I'm good on my feet. All right, back to the story. He's always been consistent on this, Ms. Luna said. It has been made very apparent that this was used to smear him, and I am not the only one that feels that way. Rep. Mike Flood, the Nebraska Republican who has stood in front of raucous town halls where voters demanded the release of the files, said Mr. Trump's change of position had no bearing on his own. He said he'd been a yes on the releasing of the files for months, even though he never added his name to the petition demanding such a vote. See, this is what I'm talking about. This political cover. They can go out there and say all along that they've been supporting this from the very beginning, but they didn't sign the discharge petition. Now, Daddy says, go ahead. Now they'll claim that we've been transparent from the very beginning. And they'll go back to their town halls, and they'll go back on their social media feeds, and they'll try to make this, they'll try to spin this, saying that they've been supportive of this all along. None of them, except for those four, Massey, Boebert, Green, and Mace, no other Republican has signed on to this. None. That's why we needed Rep. Grijalva to get sworn in by my bitch boy. Once she was sworn in, that was the 218 signature. Anybody from the Republican Party could have stepped up and signed it, but they didn't. And now they get the permission from Daddy. Yes, you can stay out past curfew. Okay, cool. I'll stay out past curfew. You like the shirt? Available in the merch store at factsstillmatter.site or FactsHQ. You can find the link tree in the bio. So that's kind of where this is sort of fallen flat, in my opinion. What are they supposed to do now? Now that they've signed on to this, and if the information is only Democrats, if it's only Democrats that show up in this file, do you think anybody's going to believe that? Anybody with half a brain? If that were the case, again, think this through, right? If that were the case, then there would have been nothing keeping the president from releasing it on day one, January 21st, 22nd. There would have been, so this is what I'm saying, that every time they go down this road, they're kind of stuck a little bit. And it's a weird spot for them to be in. And I don't know how they get out of it because they're so incompetent in their administration. They lie on top of lie on top of lie on top of lie. They've got nowhere to run. So they're going to just try to double down and attempt to convince their base that we've been transparent from the very beginning on this. And we were the ones that were protecting these people. But meanwhile, you're directing your Department of Justice to investigate Bill Clinton, JP Morgan Chase, Larry Summers. By the way, Larry Summers, who from Harvard, I've got a statement from him. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And others. And the American people, you really think the American people are going to believe that it's just them when there's thousands of survivors, a massive network across the globe? And this goes again to the Christian nationalists who support Trump. If you want everybody exposed, then you should want everybody exposed. We do, which proves again that people on the left care more about the nuclear family, care more about the sanctity of your freedoms, care more about your children, care more about their safety. And I always think about the dynamic in a Christian nationalist household because we know how they feel about women. we know how they feel. Women are expected to be subservient. So when you're having a conversation with your son and your daughter, you are immediately putting more value on your son than you are on your daughter. How does that work? So Sally and Bobby, I want to talk to you guys about the world. Bobby, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Sally, you do whatever the fuck Bobby says. Any questions? How does that even work? I can't even imagine having that conversation. But that's fucking handmade shit. That's fucking Gilead. Like I can't even imagine having that conversation. But that's kind of where we are. So I'm going to get into this a little bit, and we'll go back to covering what I wanted to talk about. I'm going to play some sound. I'm going to give you a few examples of what it is that we're talking about. We touched briefly on how there's these communities popping up, very white picket fencey, white siding, white cobblestones, communities popping up. I use that deliberately, popping up all across the country. You'll find them in Arkansas. You'll find some in Missouri. You'll find some in Appalachia. You'll find some in Idaho. So popping up everywhere, right? Boys rule, girls rule. Okay, whatever. That's part of it. That's the next evolution. And to me, this entire thing stems from, like I said before, the census has made it very, very clear that I think it's inside of 10 years, 10, 15 years, that white people will no longer be the majority in our country. And that scares people to death. So we're going to start with this this infamous interview conversation between Jared Taylor, who is a hardcore Christian nationalist, white supremacist, and Eddie Huang, who does a podcast. It's Eddie, Huang. Some of you may have heard this before. I've played this before, but I'll play it for you now because it speaks to exactly what we're discussing, not only from the misogynistic patriarchal perspective, but from the racist perspective. So here you go.
Voted for Donald Trump when you're so into facts, because his entire campaign is not based in facts. It was all based in propaganda and emotion.
I voted for Donald Trump for one reason only. His policies, if implemented, would slow the dispossession of whites in the United States.
Whew, man.
If he were to deport all illegal immigrants,
just tell us right out loud. Just go ahead and say it. I don't want anybody. I don't want anybody with any melanin in their skin to be here. So let's again just tell us right out loud.
Would slow the dispossession of whites in the United States. If he were to deport all illegal immigrants, if he were to think very hard about letting in any Muslims, all of this would slow the rate at which whites are becoming a minority.
Why are you so worried about the white dispossession of America?
Because I want my people to survive. Is that so strange? We don't control China. We don't control any place where whites are not a majority. And if we become a minority, we will not control our own destiny anymore.
I grew up in this country as a minority, as the children of immigrants. I was their first child born in America. And while I didn't have much possession or didn't much control, I really enjoyed myself. And I think that if you ask a lot of Americans, they would say that I had a lot to offer this country. According to you, I guess I would be perpetuating the dispossession of white America.
That is true. That is true.
Man.
Would you say that you wouldn't want me in this country?
At some point, when my ancestors built this nation, they did not build it with the intention of giving it away to Mexicans or Chinese or Haitians or...
That's one of these, you hear this statement a lot that Christian nationalists, in particular white supremacists, say, when my ancestors built this nation, right? You'll hear it a lot. You'll hear it a lot. You'll hear it in TikTok spaces. You'll hear it from white supremacists in their blogs. They'll talk about the Great Replacement theory, all these kinds of things. This is all part of their messaging. So that, this guy is a bona fide white Christian nationalist. His name is Jared Taylor.
Of giving it away to Mexicans or Chinese.
Want me in this country?
At some point, when my ancestors built this nation, they did not build it with the intention of giving it away to Mexicans or Chinese or Haitians or to anyone else.
Do you consider it, you keep saying your ancestors built this country, you consider that a fact?
Who else built it?
Black people, Native Americans, Chinese people who came and built the railroads.
Do you think none of that could have been
Italian people?
But they're Europeans, aren't they?
But you believe in evolution, right?
Evolution, I think, explains a great deal.
So according to evolutionary theory, we're all out of Africa. So at some point, your ancestors were sub-Saharan Africans.
So what? At some point, our ancestors were unicellular animals.
So I'm saying at any point in time, we could say you were an African. So you're
what?
choosing to pick this point in time and say you're a descendant of white Europeans.
Why do you think I'm choosing this point of time?
Because it's in favor of your politics at
It's
this
because
point.
I'm alive now.
Well, my issue with you is that I don't think you have enough compassion and vision, not because I don't like what things are now. It's that I have hope and belief in what they could be.
Right? that appeared. There was an episode of Vice. I think it's from like 2018, 2019. You can watch the whole thing. It's pretty disturbing, but it kind of speaks to what we were discussing earlier, right? How's there's this fundamental belief between the Christian nationalist movement and white T nationalism and white Christian nationalism and white T supremacy, and they all have almost the same through line, right? It's no one else belongs here. This is mine. Forgetting the stolen land, forgetting the nation being built on the back of slave labor, forgetting about the G-side of indigenous communities, right? They forget about all that. Nice. It's an interesting pivot when you talk about, Italians and the Poles and the Germans and other Europeans in general, white Europeans, right? That they're the ones that actually built the nation. At the same time, ignoring the fact that we had slave labor, ignoring the fact of the G side of the indigenous tribes. It's the same message that white supremacists and Christian nationalists have had forever. No one else belongs here. This is mine. Think about, in case you were here yesterday, think about the conversation I had yesterday morning about healthcare, right? This is a bit of a stretch, but I'm going to try to make this point for you. When we talk about people on the left being about others, like we vote for others, we understand that we have a social contract. We want society to be better. It's not equality, it's equity. We want everybody to have an opportunity, right? That is a fundamental principle of the left. We are for thee. The people on the right are for me. And in that conversation, this person I was speaking to about healthcare didn't give a shit. He just didn't think it was fair that his taxes should go up so that people across the nation could have healthcare. Right? You're right. So this is what this kind of thread is about. Like, I don't give a shit about anybody else unless they look like me. Unless they're of European descent, European origin, white-skinned. And then their doctrine, Project 2025, ultimately speaks directly to it. The diminishing of history, whitewashing history. We don't want to talk about the slave trade unless we can find some positive things to talk about. Slavery taught slaves skills. Remember that fucking famous quote? I couldn't find it, but it's out there someplace. So we have these little communities popping up, right? These communities popping up across the country where it's whites only. I mean, this is pre-civil rights movement. Water fountains, bathrooms. This is what they want. They don't want people from marginalized communities to be here, including women. This is one of the fundamental principles from CK. This is why we talk about Charlie Kirk being an absolute piece of fucking shit, and he was. Yeah, again, I'm glad you said that. Who said that? Rhino. It's like saying 15-year-olds are not kids. That's part of their new pivot now. It's because they don't, especially women and girls, because they don't see women and girls as anything other than property. They can treat them any way they want because they see them as property. The patriarchy tells them that. The church tells them that. Their Christian nationalist belief set tells them that. Their own attitudes towards women teaches them that. They don't see women and girls as anything other than property. So then what are we supposed to do in a society where your government, you've got Christian nationalists in your government? The authors of Project 2025 have cabinet positions and or are setting policy. People like Stephen Miller, people like Pete Hegseth, people like Russ Vought, they prescribe to these same theories. So when we have these conversations with MAGA and we're like, what are you guys doing? What are you doing? You're supporting this kind of stuff. You're supporting this kind of shit. And they're like, no, we're supporting America. So America for everybody? Well, not really. Not really. So this gentleman, I found this interview. This is from PBS, from Newsnight, PBS NewsHour. So I like his description of Christian nationalism. So I'm just going to play this for you guys. It's only about 7 minutes long. I'll add some commentary, Sam, so we don't get this copyright violation.
Christian nationalism has been in the headlines quite a bit recently, but what does it really mean? Laura Barón Lopez recently spoke to one expert to better understand the concept and its reach in American society.
Brad Onishi is a former evangelical minister who once identified as a Christian nationalist himself. He left the church in 2005 and began studying religion from the outside, including extremism. He now hosts the popular podcast Straight White American Jesus and is the author of Preparing for War, The Extremist History of White Christian Nationalism and What Comes Next. I began by asking him what that term actually means.
Christian nationalism is an ideology that is based around the idea that this is a Christian nation, that this was founded as a Christian nation, and therefore it should be a Christian nation today and should be so in the future. According to survey data, Christian nationalists agree with statements like the federal government should declare the United States of America a Christian nation. Our laws should be based on Christian values. Being a Christian is important if you want to be a real American.
Onishi tracks a number of subgroups and ideas under the umbrella of white Christian nationalism, including what's known as the New Apostolic Reformation.
Well, the New Apostolic Reformation is...
And just as a reminder, this gentleman used to be a self-professed Christian nationalist. So his perspective now is like, I was in that world. Now I'm out of that world, and I can look in and say like, wow, this is crazy. People hijacking their faith under the premise of being Christians, and yet the amount of hatred that group of people has towards everyone who doesn't look and act like them, doesn't pray the way that they do, doesn't love the way that they do, and especially if you're a woman, and especially if you're a black woman in particular. Especially if you're queer, or the poor, the disabled, every marginalized group out there. The Christian and the Christian nationalists, what happened to that? Wouldn't it just be better just to call yourself white nationalists? Because that's what you are. So I prefer the white Christian nationalist because that covers it.
Notable for a number of reasons. One, it's built around the idea that Christians are called to a new transformation or reformation of the United States. These are Christians who want to revolutionize the way that our country looks and to make it great again in terms of being a Christian nation. They also are deeply invested in the notion of spiritual warfare, the idea that we are called as Christians to fight a cosmic battle between good and evil, and that it's our duty to be boots on the ground for God in that conflict. What this has led to some decades later is the New Apostolic Reformation leaders, the apostles and the prophets that are really at the head of this movement, were some of the earliest to support Donald Trump. And
the Seven Mountain Mandators as well, right? They're part of this push, of which Mike Johnson's one.
2016, and they've remained steadfast in that support. They were at the very avant-garde of trying to get the 2020 election overturned in the wake of Joe Biden's victory and mobilizing folks to be at January 6th. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of New Apostolic Reformation Christians at January 6th, as an example.
We know that 2/3 of white evangelicals sympathize or adhere to white Christian nationalist beliefs.
So 2/3 of white evangelicals. So I always go back to the 70s, like, the rise of feminism, the women's rights movements, post-civil rights era, right? So what the Christian nationalists, the evangelicals at the time were seeing is like, man, there's like people who are gay or out of the closet. That sucks. Women are getting voices. We can't let that happen. Black people now have rights. We can't let that happen. So they decided to find a topic because they couldn't just come right out and say, hey, look at us. We're white Christian nationalists. So instead, what did they go after? They went after abortion rights. And for 50 years, they used Roe v. Wade as the blanket for the takeover, the theocratic takeover, the white Christian nationalist takeover of our country. They just needed something. They needed a galvanizing tool, and it was Roe. It was the women's movement. It was the civil rights movement. All those things, sure, but it was absolutely Roe. They've been working on trying to get that overturned for 50 years, and they did because they got the support of the evangelical Christian nationalists, which has grown in the conservative movement. And then they get Trump, and then they get Bannon, and they get Roger Stone, they get Stephen Miller, and then they get a cabinet full of people who are Christian nationalists, and they're celebrating overturning Roe v. Wade. the Dobbs decision, taking away women's rights to their body. And they're celebrating it. And they kept telling us, oh, no, it's a states' rights issue. You know full well that if legislation was introduced for a federal abortion ban, you goddamn know they would fucking sign it. Of course they would. Of course they would. So there's a history there, right? So they will take advantage of people's belief set. They'll demonize immigrants, the poor, black communities, marginalized communities across the board, everyone, and in particular, women. That's always been the target. As we discussed yesterday with another interesting guest that we had, I asked flat out, do you believe women? Well, it depends. No, it doesn't depend. So, that's the, I don't have to tell you, women in the chat, y'all know, which is why when we have these conversations with MAGA women, it's like, okay, I get it. You're a white Christian nationalist. So you're caught up in it as well. You don't even value yourself enough because you are subjected to what we see. The subjugation at the hands of the head of the household. And I've got some more on that as well. Right? Exactly. That's right. He did that. I forgot about that, Greek. He said we were forced to. I asked this person, do you believe women? He said we're forced to. Can you imagine that? And I think I discussed this afterwards. You can watch the replay on YouTube. By the way, hello on YouTube. Hi on Twitch. If you guys not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, please consider doing so. Also, please consider subscribing to Twitch as we build our platforms. And I asked the question. I said, okay, so then your daughter comes to you after, well, she likely wouldn't with that particular belief, but you find out that your daughter's been violated and or assaulted. Are you forced to believe her? Really? Really? So your son is accused of committing one of these acts, and you're going to be forced to believe the person that he violated instead of actually looking at the evidence? This is how far we have fallen, and it's at the hands, in my opinion, of the church, because the patriarchy sits there. That's where it lives. Right? That's where it lives. And I'm not going to turn this into a religious debate. I'm going to turn this into a Christian nationalist debate because that's the issue. So let me get back to this sound. So again, 64% white evangelicals, sympathizers, or adherents to Christian nationalism.
Mobilizing folks to be at January 6th. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of New Apostolic, and they've remained steadfast in that support. They were at the very avant-garde of trying to get the 2020 election overturned in the wake of Joe Biden's victory and mobilizing folks to be at January 6th. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of New Apostolic Reformation Christians at January 6th, as an example.
We know that 2/3 of white evangelicals sympathize or adhere to white Christian nationalist beliefs. So where do they fall within this larger movement?
I think white evangelicals are the group we think of when we think of white Christian nationalism, and for good reason. These are folks who, when we think about the Iowa caucuses, in 2016, Trump's white evangelical voters were about 20% of his share of voters in that cycle. Just a few weeks ago in 2024, that grew to well over 50%. White evangelicals remain committed to the MAGA movement, and one of the key indicators of why is Christian nationalism.
Are there leaders across these subgroups of white Christian nationalism that are tied to the former president directly or to his larger network?
Yes. For example, a group of New Apostolic Reformation leaders, apostles and prophets and others, were present at the White House a week before January 6th. Speaker Mike Johnson has direct ties to the New Apostolic Reformation. Speaker Mike Johnson is somebody who's sought the counsel and the friendship of Timothy Carcaden, who is a New Apostolic Reformation pastor from his home district in Shreveport, Louisiana. Timothy Carcaden is a close associate with Dutch Sheets. Dutch Sheets is perhaps the most ardent Trump supporter in the New Apostolic Reformation. He's the one who may have done the most of any Christian leader before January 6th. Oh. Speaker Mike Johnson has direct ties to the New Apostolic.
Sorry, that kind of reset a little bit. Having a bit of a technical, I think I'm going to go try to just reset my Wi-Fi real quick to see if that works. It should stay up, but I'll be right back.
Reformation. Speaker Mike Johnson is somebody who's sought the counsel and the friendship of Timothy Carcaden, who is a New Apostolic Reformation pastor from his home district in Shreveport, Louisiana. Timothy Carcaden is a close associate with Dutch Sheets. Dutch Sheets is perhaps the most ardent Trump supporter in the New Apostolic Reformation. He's the one who may have done the most of any Christian leader in the United States to mobilize folks to try to overturn the 2020 election and to make sure to attend January 6th. One of the most frightening things, I think, about Mike Johnson is the flag he hangs outside of his office, an Appeal to Heaven flag. The Appeal to Heaven flag goes back to the Revolutionary War, George Washington. It was inspired by John Locke. But over the last 10 years, the Appeal to Heaven flag has been popularized by Dutch Sheets. Dutch Sheets sees the Appeal to Heaven flag as a symbol of Christian revolution. If you look closely at January 6th, you will see.
Did anything glitch? Everything seemed to be okay? Hope so.
Dozens of Appeal to Heaven flags. It may have a long history, but in the contemporary context, it has a very specific meaning. So the fact that Mike Johnson has it hanging outside of his office, to me, signifies how he understands his role as Speaker of the House in terms of being a Christian and being an American.
I don't think that gets discussed enough, because it disgusts me that the Speaker of the House in the United States of America, where Congress can make no laws determining who and what you pray for, he literally makes a claim every single day that we are a Christian nation, when in fact we are not. And that's the message that the seven mountain mandators and these hold on a second. One second. Yes, I'm going to pause real quick. We have a guest. I'm going to bring up a guest, and we'll get back to our audio.
Hello.
Hi, she's having a baby. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Thanks for being here. What's on your mind?
So if it's okay, I was listening to the videos and the things that you were saying, but I talk about Black maternal death, and I heard that that's something you've been bringing awareness to. Do you have time to talk about that, or would you like me to come and try to join you on another day?
I would love to talk about it, because there's a cause that we are supporting now. We're selling an item in our merch store. An organization that supports Black women who are either becoming moms or have become moms. So that's a cause that we are absolutely supporting. So yes, I'd love to talk about it. My name is Steve. Feel free to call me Steve.
Oh, it's nice to meet you, Steve. You can call me Francis. And I think that's really awesome. A couple of mutual of mine have been telling me that you're trying to do the work. I'm kind of I'm a little sick, but I'm going to turn my camera on, because I try to do that when other people are.
Okay.
Hi. It's nice to meet you. So I've been trying to, for years, on and offline, get people to care about Black maternal health, care about Black maternal death. And I think there's a lot of really big misconceptions about where we are. So for sure, Black women are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth than our white counterparts. And we're twice as likely to die than our Hispanic counterparts, and 1.2 more likely to die than our Asian counterparts. And I think it's really important for people to understand that, like, Black women are dying at enormous numbers, and that childbirth death is different from pregnancy death and postpartum death. So in the US and around the world, anyone that's a part of NATO or the World Health Organization considers childbirth death from birth to 41 days postpartum. So what's happening to a lot of Black women is they're going to the hospital, they're having a baby, they're surviving that birth event. Then they're getting sent home some days as early as 30 hours after a C-section. They're going home and they're dying at home alone. Or they're dying due to infection 2 weeks after childbirth, like the birth event. So I think there's just like a really big misconception about how bad Black maternal death is in this country. Give me 1 second. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
My alarm clock. So I
have arguments with my Alexa all the time, so I totally get it. I understand where you're coming from. No problem. Go ahead.
Yes. So yeah, 30 hours. Like, so for me, I had a C-section with my daughter, and within 48 hours I was already discharged and home, and I had an extremely high, blood pressure, and there was just like zero regard for my life. And this isn't a unique experience. And I would like people to know, I have 2 college degrees. Not that it matters. Who you are and where you come from should not matter. But just so we can all be on the same page, I was married for 4 years. I have 2 college degrees. I went to a private hospital. I had a doula. I made sure that I was fit. My heart health was good and my physical body was healthy before I conceived. So I had a planned pregnancy. I did everything in my power that I could to be healthy. I think there's just really large misconception that Black maternal death is only happening to Black women living in poverty, or Black women who don't have college degrees, or Black women who are having unplanned pregnancies. In fact, the higher your education level, the higher your chance of death. And I think there's a lot of things that play into that. But I think there's this
idea. The higher, I want to make sure I heard that properly. The higher your education level,
yes,
the higher your rate of death.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
And I think that has a lot to do with this savior complex. I think when a young, poor Black mom goes into the hospital, and she's dealing with a bad nurse, there's 1 or 2 things that are going on. 1, there's going to be a nurse that feels like, oh my gosh, I'm saving this poor woman, so I'm going to be very nice to her. Or the opposite, which is I need to humble her. Because you have to keep in mind, if you're a Black woman and you're a social worker, you have the same degree level as an RN. If you're a Black woman and you have a master's in education, you have a higher degree level than the average RN. So I think there's this element of saviorism that isn't at play when you have an educated Black woman. And let's not forget, I think we can all agree that one of the most healthiest people in the world is Serena Williams. They almost killed her.
Yeah.
She had a baby. She's like, something's not right. You guys need to run a scan. It took them almost 20 hours before they believed her. Like, we almost lost the great Beyonce Knowles had a traumatic birth at Mount Sinai. Like, this is not something that has happened on accident, right? We needed laws to drink out of the same water fountains. We needed laws to go to the same schools. We needed laws to get married to one another. We needed all these laws to make it fair and equal. I do not think it is an accident that they didn't pass any laws requiring hospitals and doctors and nurses to be held accountable when their Black maternal death rates are off. I think Black women's bodies have been supplementing teaching tools for a very long time. When they want to test something out, when they want to test out a procedure, it's always on a Black woman's body. And we know that. We know that because we know the history of gynecology. We know that. Like, these are things we know. So the idea that in 2025, it is more dangerous now, the death rates for Black women are higher now than it was 20 years ago, is a sign of how far we haven't come. The idea that when Black women have been saying this for a very long time, we're dying, they're not listening to us, and people are only starting to listen now because people are getting it on tape, which is also very terrifying and also very concerning. We have this obsession with Black death in this country, consuming it as entertainment. People won't listen to a Black coworker that says, what you said was wrong, what you said was racist, but they'll cry during a slave movie. It's very strange. It's very weird if you think about it. Like, people literally will go to the theater and cry during a movie about Selma or a movie about Jim Crow, but then they won't listen like to someone who's telling them that right then and there. Does that make sense? I'm yapping. I'm so sorry.
No, please, Frances, please don't apologize. This is really important information. And please don't apologize. This is really important information. Go.
If you want to learn more, I did do a TED Talk on this topic. Sadly, it hasn't even gotten 3,000 views. It's only, it's less than 6 minutes long, and it breaks down exactly where we are when it comes to Black maternal health and Black maternal death. It tells our white counterparts exactly what they can do to help. So there's really 3 big things that you can do to help, and it won't cost you anything but time. Number 1, if you've given birth in the United States, please go and review the hospital where you gave birth. If I'm going to the hospital, right, and I'm having a baby, and I can look at Google and see all the things white women were able to get, that's going to tool me. That's going to empower me with information. So if I go to the hospital and I'm like, hey, I've been laboring for a day. I'm starving. I need something. And they're like, we can't offer you anything, but I can look on Google and see, well, you offered all these white mothers soup. Give me some of that. And so it's like, that's empowering. If you work in an office and you've had a baby or you've had a miscarriage and management offered you time off, or they offered you unlimited time to pump breast milk, these are all things that you can share with your Black counterparts. You can just send an email to the whole office and be like, hey guys, I just got back from having a baby. They gave me 2 weeks paid off. And I'm also able to get flex hours on Friday so I can take my kid to pediatric appointments. Now, I know that that's plausible in our office. See, a lot of people don't know that. For example, I had a baby. I had a coworker who also had a baby. Our baby were only 3 weeks apart. She got offered an office to breast milk. I got offered my cubicle in the bathroom. See, I got hit to that. There's also this assumption that Black women don't want to breastfeed, that we don't want to pump, that we want to just drop our kids off at daycare and we don't want any flexibility. That's just not true. But like, that's something you can do to empower your coworkers. That's not going to cost you anything. Just send the email. Okay. Like, just send the email. And the third thing you can do, but this thing, only do it if you're equipped, you're educated, and you don't fawn easily. So if you have a Black person in your family or a Black person that you're friends with, or someone that you truly have an intimate, close relationship to, you can go to the hospital with them and bear witness. But you have to be careful. Going to the hospital with a Black woman to bear witness and then you side with the white nursing staff, you're not helping. You're going to make the situation worse. And a lot of people want to use their whiteness and their privilege to help, but they will quickly fawn and say things like, because I used to work in an ER and I've seen this go wrong, where someone will bring a white coworker or a white neighbor who asks to go, and the Black patient will be like, something doesn't feel right. I don't feel like anyone's listening to me. And then the white friend will be like, you're just freaking out. You're getting too angry. Don't be aggressive. So now that hospital has statements from someone you brought that they can use against you if you try to complain or say something. So we got to be really careful. A lot of people will be self-proclaiming advocates, but the advocating they've done has been in a position of power. So they'll be like, I'm an advocate. Well, how are you an advocate? Well, I'm a foster parent. Okay, so the only relationship you've ever had with a Black person has been a child to you, where they've had to live with you, where someone placed them in your home. That's different. That's not the same as being like, oh no, I spent 5 years volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club and I've had Black parents that trust me and they have invited me into their homes and we've had this rapport. Like, if a Black person has never invited you over for a sit down dinner and has never introduced you to their family, you're probably not the advocate you think that you are. And that's okay, because there's other work. There's other work. Call your local doula. See if there's someone that's a great doula who wants to become a doula, but they're short $400 in tuition. Pay their tuition. There are so many ways to help the Black community, but not all those ways you can record. That's the difference. That's where the rubber meets the road. Do you want to help the problem, or do you want to get credit for helping the problem? Because if you don't need credit, there's so much you can do. Donate to an historical Black college. Go during Thanksgiving and Christmas. I was one of those college students that couldn't afford to fly home. Drop off meals, drop off gift cards for meals or for their favorite restaurants. Drop off a bag of quarters for their freaking laundry. You can help us. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. I'm very exhausted. It's been a very long week. I keep my emails open for people who are actively in labor or families that need help. And so I've been dealing with the Dallas and the Indiana situation. So I am feeling a little bit fatigued. There's so much you can do to help us, but you got to decide, do you want to help or do you want credit? Do you want to help or do you want content? Do you want help or do you want praise? And if you're willing to help without getting credit that you can put online. There's so many things that you can do. Someone asked what my TED Talk was called. If you type into YouTube, Frances Ivan Marie, Black Maternal Health, it'll pop right up. So,
Frances, if it's okay with you, if it's all right with you, I'd like to put the link to your TED Talk in the link tree that's in my bio, so we can constantly promote it. Would that be okay with you?
Yes, that would be great.
Well,
there's so much you can do. Yeah. There's so much you can do.
Before I forget,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Before I forget, there's a big request from our community for you to join our Discord if you'd be interested.
Yes.
We try to do a lot of advocacy for as many communities as we can. And you'll find a lot of people that are driven by those causes, and we're all trying to do something and to be better. But we need more voices like yours.
Yeah.
There's no charge to join our Discord. We'd love to have you if you're interested.
Yeah.
Okay, and you can do that. You can find the link. It's in the link tree in my bio, or one of my mods can reach out to you. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure I got that out there.
Please have them send this to me. I'd love to join, and we can do it. Like, we can do this. We can do this together. There's so much you can do. We don't necessarily need monetary help, but speaking out. There was one woman I met. She was a white grandma, but she had 6 daughters, and they all had multiple kids. They were able to leave 20 different reviews at 20 different hospitals. That's huge. That's huge. Talking to your HR, even if you're not pregnant, talking to your HR and saying, what can you give? If I want to have a baby, what are the resources for me? Just email it to them. They'll email you back in writing and then send it to the whole office. Like, you can use your curiosity and your ability to get into these rooms to give people information. You coming up to me and telling me during lunch, oh, I just want you to know, I know how hard it is to be Black and have a baby. What am I supposed to do with that? Coming into the cafeteria and handing me an email you got from HR that shows all the things that they offer to pregnant people. Now that I can use for life while I'm at that company. That is awesome. That is a tool. Maybe you've never given birth. Maybe that's not your thing. There's other things you can do. I tell moms all the time, you know what? Maybe that isn't your path. Maybe you never given birth, maybe whatever. Okay, but your child has an IEP. Let the Black parents in your kid's classroom know what you were offered. Well, that's interesting. Your kid has dyslexia. My kid has dyslexia. They offered my kid an aid. What did they offer you? Oh, they said that they don't offer aids? Well, I know that they do because my kid got one. Letting the Black women in your life, knowing the resources that you've been able to tap into without having to pay and to fight, is a huge resource, because now I can put a name and a time. I can say, well, I know you're telling me that you don't have this, but I know that there's a child with dyslexia in the 2nd grade that has been able to get this resource. So is there any way we can circle back so then my child can have that as well? And they'll go, damn. Okay, what do you do? What do you do when someone can put a name to the thing they want in a receipt? There's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to go. So listen, we can all do this, right? Like, we can all make this better. And it's just very interesting when I sit down and I look at my life and I look at what I want, and I want more kids, but it's so dangerous. And I have to look at, do I want to risk my life and leave the 2 kids that I already have? And it's bad. My husband, who's active in the military, was overseas, and he was on a 12-month tour. And I was just really scared. I was 8 months pregnant. It was our 2nd kid. And I was just feeling like I couldn't do it. Like, I felt like I was going to go into that hospital and I was going to die. Like, I wasn't going to make it out alive. I was just terrified. And so my husband talked to his command and he was like, is there any way I can use my paternity leave, go home? I promise I'll come back. Like, my wife just needs me. And they were like, well, why? Like, you got to tell us, like, what's going on. And they were like, she's Black and she's pregnant. Now, mind you, his whole command was white. My husband's white. And they were like, it took them 20 minutes of Googling for them to be like, yeah, we're going to go out. We're going to go ahead and send you home. So it's very terrifying to always think, like, to have this very healthy desire to, like, want to have kids and want to expand your family, and your kids get older and they, you know, they're like, I want siblings and I want this. And you when you do this work and you know the numbers, I'm sorry, just getting very emotional.
It's okay. I got you.
When you do the work, and you know the numbers, and you know the stakes are so high. But then you look at your kids and you look at your husband and you're so happy and you just love your family. You know, I wanted more kids for a very long time, but I when I sit down and I, like, talk to our attorney and I look at our wills and I do the math, and I'm like, honey, like, the most dangerous thing I can do as a Black woman isn't to become a cop, isn't to become a firefighter, isn't to become an EMT, isn't to get on a plane, isn't it to drive on a highway, isn't even to drive tired. It's to get pregnant.
Yeah.
And when you put that into like a perspective, and you put that down on paper, and you're like, every year my husband's been in the military, more Black women have died in childbirth than died doing his job, active duty. Like, when you put that on paper, like, my job is more dangerous than your job as far as fatalities. And that's horrifying. And no shade, I'm very apolitical. I try very hard not to speak politics online for many reasons. I think anyone whose spouse is active duty, watch your back, people are petty. Second reason is I need to be able to talk to everybody. So I do not talk politics on my page. But it is shameful. It is shameful that Black maternal death has been rising every single year for the last 20 years. And there's not a single law on the books that holds a hospital accountable for having the Black maternal death rate that they do. There's not a single hospital that has lost their right to bill Medicaid and Medicare for the Black maternal death rates that they have. It's shameful. It's shameful that no one has passed a comprehensive bill with consequences. And let's keep it 100. England, Ireland, France, and Scotland has the same rates for Black women. So anyone who's like, well, I'm in Britain, thank God. Black women in London are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth than their white counterparts. They just have less deaths. But the stats are the same. We have a race problem. And all of us, all these first world countries have it. Let's keep it a buck. Women in New York, Black women in New York are 10 times more likely to die in childbirth than their white counterparts. That's worse than Alabama. Okay? Listen, it depends on where you live. Racism looks different in different places. You just got to pick what form of racism you can live with. But let's keep it a buck. You look at Georgia, one of the most Blackest, important, historical, beautiful states. I gave birth into Georgia. They almost killed me. You're not safer in New York than you are in Georgia in that labor and delivery room. And that's just the facts. Those aren't my numbers. That's what the state is reporting to the CDC and the World Health Organization. I don't make up numbers. I go on the websites. I go to New York Public Health. I go to World Health Organization. I go to CDC. I go to NATO. All these states have to report this information. Now, Alabama, their rates for Black infants is worse than in New York. Infants in Alabama are dying at a higher rate than Black infants in New York. That is true. But I think, again, you guys have to circle back around. You have dying due to childbirth. That means birth to 40 days postpartum. You have dying during a pregnancy-related complication. That's from when you get pregnant to before you give birth to a full-term baby. And then you have postpartum death. That's going to be from birth, 41 days postpartum to 12 months after having your baby. And a lot of people get those terms mixed up, which is reasonable and fine, and I used to too. But we really got to just look at that. That means people are getting sent home in New York and they're dying by themselves. New York, Harlem, Brooklyn, New York. New York was a mecca for Black people for so long. The Underground Railroad led you to New York. So it's bad everywhere. And I think a lot of people just make these assumptions about different cities and the different organizations. I'm not knocking New York. I love New York. It's the city where dreams are made of. I love the city. But when we're talking about birth, I'll tell you, I won't give birth there. I'll tell you that right now. So I'm done yapping. I hope that's helpful.
Frances, first of all, this is incredible. You've made an impact on lots of people. I just want to take this opportunity to let folks know we've made it just a on-the-spot kind of change. So the organization that we are supporting is blackmamasmatter.org. So actually, we're going to extend what we're doing in our merch store. Any items sold in the merch store today, all the proceeds will go directly to that particular cause. So if you've ever wanted to pick up something in our merch store, you'll find the link in the link tree in my bio, Facts HQ or factsstillmatter.site. So all the proceeds from the sale of any item will go to that cause. Secondly, I had a question for you, if I might, because this is always a term that I've always been like, it seems kind of weird. When we hear the term medical racism, it's almost like people are trying to parse it out. Like it's racism is racism. It's just, it shows up in every industry across the board. So when do you use that term when you're describing or explaining what we've kind of been through this morning? If that question makes sense.
It depends. So I think more often people are coming into contact with medical bias. And I'll give you an example, and it's not long, and then I'll tell you what I think of medical racism. So I was having my daughter, my first child ever, and the midwife asked me, "How was your pain?" And I said, "It's okay right now," because it was. And she goes, "Good. Because I know when Black women say they're in pain, they're exaggerating. I know when Hispanic women say they're in pain, they're making it lower. And when a white woman says she's in pain, she's pretty much telling the truth." That's what I learned in nursing school. So that was medical bias. She didn't do anything. She wasn't touching my body. I didn't ask for something and she declined. Medical racism would be if she came into my room, I asked for epidural and she left, purposely didn't document it, and didn't get an anesthesiologist to come help me. That's medical racism. She uses her hate towards Black people to decline an intervention that I needed. So I think in most cases, people are coming into contact with racial bias, but this is where the wheels start turning. If you're telling someone something hurts and they genuinely believe that when you say that it hurts, to dig it down a notch because they were taught in medical school or nursing school that when you say something hurts, it's not serious. It's the steps they take following that. Then what happens is you might get the charge nurse or the surgeon or the anesthesiologist who's actually racist, who will then justify their racism based on the chart that they see, which has nothing in it. Because think about it. If I already don't like a Black person, then I'm looking at her chart and I don't see any complaining about labor pains. I see nothing about a lightheadedness. I see nothing about when she came in on intake, she was already feeling a really strong Braxton Hicks. If I don't see any of that on her chart, now I have paperwork that can justify my racism if it ever goes to court, if it ever goes anywhere. So that's how a team of people who have racial bias can make it very safe for medical racism, and it's just a breeding ground. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. I mean, the way, the bias, it is. Thank you for asking, because answering that question. I've always thought about that term in interesting ways, but never really thought about it the way that you just broke it down. This has been incredible. If I could ask you, if you wouldn't mind again, you brought up some great examples of one of the things that we say around here is the mantra of do something. We're always trying to encourage people to do something. I end my show with that every single day. And I talk very directly that, that white people are the problem. I'm constantly working on my awareness of my privilege, and I'm always trying to find ways to use it. This is not about me. Well, I think you brought up some really good points of things that people can do into that do something spirit. I think you gave 3 examples of some things that people can do. I'm sure there's millions, but let's focus on those. Would you just mind repeating those again?
I will not, and I will not go on a tangent. So one thing you can do is, if you've given birth or someone in your family has given birth, you can go to Google, look up the hospital where they had a baby, and write a review. Things you can focus on is, would you give birth there again? That's huge. If a white woman want to give birth there again, that's not a place I want to go. Did they allow you a walking epidural? Were you able to eat, like get substance, whether that's soup, Gatorade, whatever the case may be? And is there anything specific that happened that was remarkable? Maybe your baby went to the NICU, but they allowed you time to hold. Maybe you had a C-section, but they allowed you to have skin to skin. Something like that. Anything remarkable, whether or not you go back. So that's a huge thing you can do. Second thing you can do is, if you work in an office or really any type of professional setting, you can contact your HR and ask them what benefits are accessible to women who are pregnant and postpartum. So that might look like flex time. That might look like paid maternity leave. That might look like extra time to pump. If you can get that information in writing and then share that with the office, that's a powerful tool for your Black counterparts. Then we have something in print that we can then have if we don't know. And then the third thing is, if and when you can, if you're prepared and you've done the work, you can always bear witness. Going with your Black friends, community members, family members, with a pen and paper or even your phone, and what I do is, you can send a text message to yourself, which is really cool. A lot of people don't do that. You can type your own phone number in your phone and text yourself. And what you're going to want to do is, anytime someone comes into that person's room, you're going to send yourself a text. Anytime someone touches that person, you're going to send yourself another text, maybe like an emoji. And then you have documentation with timestamps, because our texts have a timestamp of,
yes, they do,
what treatment they got, how often they were visited. So heaven forbid something awful happens and that person came in with like head or back or a fever, and then you can be like, no one checked on this person for 45 minutes. Well, sir, how did you know it was 45 minutes? I text myself. I was there. I did not interfere with the medicine. I did not open my mouth. I just bared witness. And it's even better if, when you go home, you email yourself what happened. Why is this important? Then you can remember. You have something that you can reference, and your emails are time stamped. And if you really want to go a step further, write everything that happens. It's called a poor man's patent. You can write down everything that happened, email it, send it in the snail mail. So then it's time stamped from the U.S. Postal Office, and you're not going to open it. Then they can be like, well, how do we know? How do we have an unbiased thing that you didn't alter? Like, how do we know you're not a whiz kid with the email? You forged the email. Well, so unless I have Jack Bauer at the post office, I have a letter I wrote to myself and I mailed it to myself and I haven't opened it. That's all tracked. So those are things you can do. I will definitely join y'all's Discord. And if you ever want me back, and if you want me to, I have tons of research, tons of free sources in my page. I try very hard to be very inclusive to everyone, but I do focus on Black women, because we have a very hard time getting people to dedicate their lives, their research, and their money on causes that more impact us. I'll have a lot of people be like, can you talk about this group? I'm like, I really got to focus on this. So if you are down to help Black infants and women, I love everybody, but that is what I focus on, because our numbers are catastrophic and we need to fix it. And I will definitely join you guys' Discord. You can follow me on TikTok if you want. If you don't, that's fine. But please watch my TED Talk, because there are only 3 TED Talks on Black maternal death, and none of them have reached 50,000 views, which is horrible. And we want organizations like TED Talk and news sources to recognize this topic and to recognize its value. And I hope you guys invite me back whenever you can. And I'm always here. You want me to do a certain topic, I can. You want me to do a topic on childbirth, postpartum, pregnancy, just HR. You let me know. I got you.
Before you leave, Frances, again, I want to thank you. I love how these organic conversations happen out of nowhere. So thank you for requesting, and thank you for being here. Please promote the name of your TED Talk again.
Yes. So if you put in Frances Ivy Marie, which is my name, Black maternal health or Black maternal death or Black birth, it'll pop up. It's there on, someone already posted it in y'all's Discord. If you go and you watch it, if you could please not put emojis, because it messes up the search. If you could put anything related to the talk, like, wow, I didn't know this about birth, or, oh, great, like, I'm going to go do that. That always helps, because we want doctors and nurses, like, obviously people in this chat, they're down for the cause, right? But that's always something I think people forget, is that when you comment something that actually is related to what you're watching, that's great. It's awesome that you've met me here, but meeting me on TikTok has nothing to do with the TED Talk. So if you can just comment something that's actually relevant to what I'm saying, that would be so great. And I'll come back anytime you guys want me. And it's Vivid Mama is the one who told me to came here. She's been telling me for a long time to come here and talk to you. I'm like, they have such a good vibe in there. I don't know if I want to interrupt.
Thank you. I'm honored for that. And one thing, before I let you go, one thing that you said that really stood out to me is the lengths to which you would have to go. Snail mail, poor man's patent, all these things just to support your experience. That in and of itself should tell everybody all they need to know. I mean, you literally having to go through all these hoops to, for lack of a better term, defend the situation that you went through, because we know that by and large women aren't believed, but in particular Black women, it's obvious.
We're not
that was just what really eye-opening to me.
Yes, sir. And I thank you for doing this space. I think during COVID, we all kind of got home. We're stuck at home, and we started to get exposed to what the world was actually like. And I think a lot of people, they think listening to Black women means letting Black women educate them for free. But I appreciate accounts like yours that understands that listening to Black women is about doing the things you know that are right to protect them. Asking me for a book list isn't listening to Black women. You're asking me for labor. That's not actually listening to me. You're asking me to work for free, because there are people who are specialists. There are Black librarians that you can pay, and they will give you what to buy for your library, what to buy for your kids, what books to start reading. Like, they will break it down for you. There's this, it's like this COVID turned into this movement of like saying something really traumatic, or like showing a kid's hair that wasn't done and being like, Black woman, teach me how to do this Black child's hair. Like, really weird stuff that really wasn't centered around truly pouring into the Black community and truly protecting Black women. So I appreciate you having this space where people who aren't even sure if they're like-minded yet can learn. And then people who are like-minded, who are lonely, I bet you there's thousands of people that are in this live that feel like this is the only time that they can be their authentic self, their authentic Caucasian self, trying to make themselves better without being judged. And then I bet you there's a lot of Black folks in here too that are probably like, finally, I can just sit, kind of see what the folks are doing, getting into, and like kind of get hope that the world's trying to be better for me. And so bravo to you for hosting this space, and then bravo to you for listening to your mods, because that's, I think, the element a lot of people miss. There's a lot of people, our Caucasian brothers and sisters that have huge platforms, but they only want to listen to themselves. And so and I'm not saying anyone's names. I'm not even thinking about a particular person, but it could be very hard to get access to a large stage when you're doing the work and you don't have anything to offer back. So all I can offer you is friendship, and I would love to join your Discord, and I'm very grateful that you let me be here. So thank you. And shout out to your mods.
It was an honor. It was an honor. It was an absolute honor, Francis. Thank you so much for being here. And we always say in our community, it's a little joke that once you join our community, we're like gum on your shoe. You're not getting rid of us. So it's an honor. It was an honor to talk to you today. Thank you for being here very much. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. God bless you guys.
Be safe out there.
You too.
You as well. Thank you very much. All right, bye. It was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. We will put the just give me a second. Sorry, I was trying to process this. It's a, like I mentioned just before she left, the hoops that she had to go through to try to not only capture and journalize her experience because she wouldn't be believed otherwise, and even having that be questioned is like I can't even process it. It was an absolute honor to host you, Francis. It was an honor. We will post the link to her podcast. I'll put that in the link tree that's in my bio. And just as a reminder, we are supporting blackmamasmatter.org. Thank you to Ash, our friend Ash, who gave me the idea initially. We made merch and supported it, but any item in the merch, in fact, any item in the merch store sold this week, all proceeds from the sales of those items, wherever they are, no matter who they are, no matter how many you get, every single item will go to support this particular cause. It's the least that we can do. That was an amazing opportunity, and I'm just humbled to do a better part of it. Thank you again, Francis. I appreciate you. Speaking of Ash.
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
A lot of information, isn't it? I just wanted to say I'll do the same with my merch. Yeah, I don't have a ton, but I'll announce it and do the same thing.
That's awesome.
And donate, obviously. That's all I wanted to say. So I think, I think what you just did, we have to listen to Black women. We have to listen to them. They've been telling us everything about everything for so long. And we have the data that says that they're telling the truth. And now through social media and what she was talking about is that we had the actual physical documentation that's happening, and it can't be denied. Right. And we have to,
right.
Yeah. I just wanted to tell you that I love you. I appreciate you so much. You're amazing. You are doing the work. And you have created a great space. I liked what she said about having a space where people are authentic and generally trying to do better. And that was I just loved that, right? Because we have to. We have to hold people accountable, and we have to teach people, but we also have to sort of let people learn and figure things out. And it's a really hard thing to balance. And as a host and somebody who's putting their face on something, that's hard too. And W to your mods, right? Like having a team that backs you up, and having a team that will hold you accountable, guide you through these things. Cause it's territory that should have been charted a long time ago. And it should be perfected by now. We should know how to do this, but we're not, and we're still working on it. So,
I'm reminded by something that I love you too, friend.
Yep, take care.
I was just going to say, I was just reminded by something that Francis said, and I got this lesson a while ago, and I encourage people in our community to do this. Like if you're doom scrolling TikTok or wherever, or if you're out in spaces, or if you're in social spaces, because it's easier because you can just sit quietly. I would encourage you to go to Black spaces, go to creators, go to spaces that are hosted by Black women in particular, and just sit and listen. Don't comment, just sit and listen to try to learn. Because there is so much that we don't know. And I respect people trying to do the work. And I respect people trying to understand and unpack their privilege. But it's got to go beyond that. You've got to try to learn. Just listen.
And if you don't know, if you're still learning and you don't know what to do, one of the biggest things you can do are find organizations that support Black women, especially in pregnancy. So you can find like organizations that do like doula and like postpartum and family support specifically for Black families. Homeland Heart in Tennessee, Nashville does that. Something right now that's lacking is the pipeline of providers does not match the pipeline of patients, and Black women are taken care of generally better by Black women, and we need to support. If you can find places to support scholarships and ways to help move and find the opportunities, for Black women and Black people to get into the positions where they're taking care of Black women. The pipeline doesn't match. You can just look at it. It's Black women go out searching for Black providers, and that shouldn't be the case. So those are some ways that you can just, monetarily, if you don't know and you're not educated enough, there are people who are educated. Find that, give your money to them and say, do something with this because I don't know yet and I'm still learning.
Someone else said, thank you, friend. I love you. I love you very much. Talk to you later. All right. Bye.
Bye.
You too. See ya. We talk about this all the time about how, every single time democracy's under threat, Black women cross the breach and defend the rights of us. And what the fuck does our society do for them? Just, all she wanted to do was have a family. She has to worry about her life. It's like, I can't get past the hatred. I'm sorry. I can't get past it. Every single day. It's every single day we just see it. Every single day. It's just, and I can't thank Francis enough for that conversation and for having, faith in me and our community to be able to have that space here. It's just, I just can't, it's just, I don't know what to say. We see it in every walk of life. She was talking about how, the connection to corporate America from Black women being out on maternity leave, and are they afforded the same courtesies when they come back, to create, she had to pump in her cubicle. And it's just the same thing over and over and over and over again. And there just seems to be this just malaise from people, just like I've talked about before, just accepting it. I learned a while ago that I can't consider myself an ally. I've not earned that right. I have to be told that I am. And that goes for all of you. But I will do my best to be an accomplice. That's the least I can do. I have a platform here where we get 1,500, 2,000 people every single day. We talk about things that should matter to people. And it's just, sure, we have to keep people aware of the news. And that's our role here. That's our responsibility. But this is so much deeper than that. This is life, literally life and death. Using Black women for experimentation. The situation in Georgia, Black women as incubators, and just they're whether it be Braxton Hicks or their experiences during pregnancy, during labor, is just ignored. And something she said that was, again, very powerful. If you want to be an advocate and an accomplice in the fight, be sure you are there for the person that you say you're there for. If you're there to support a black woman, then you support a black woman. If she's not getting the care that she needs, then be a fucking advocate. Be an advocate. Be an accomplice for her. It can't just be deferring to the system or appeasing her, saying, you'll be all right, rubbing her hair. Fuck that. It just gets me every day. It just gets me.
Hello.
Good morning, Kale. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
All right.
Yeah, I'm a little choked up myself too because I had just kind of entered in the middle of the conversation, but being a black woman myself, I know of other experiences. I do not have kids of my own, but I did experience a traumatic moment in an OBGYN office where I live. And because of that, unfortunately, it has made me stay away from doctors' offices. And my wonderful husband, who is a white man, I recently asked him to come with me to my next doctor's appointment because I don't feel safe and I don't feel heard. And I feel like I'm constantly going through providers trying to find someone who is really listening to what I'm saying. So I just, I wanted to say thank you again. I listen to this show every day and I'm always learning something new. And it's helping me find and connect with other people who feel like me and those who want to help people like me. And it's so important to me because I want to help other people like us. I want to help other people like you. And I'm so appreciative of being able to connect and being able to find these resources so that not only can I have them for myself, but I can share it for other people in need. And, I live in northern Nevada, so most of the doctors that I see out here are predominantly white. And my mom, she lives in California, and she's always saying, man, I wish you lived out here because I have a wonderful doctor. Of course, there's many out there of many other backgrounds, but I just can't seem to find the one out here. And unfortunately, with the way that this country is right now, it's just so hard to move anywhere. And it's just like the financial need for anyone is just not there unless you really, really have it. So it's like, how can I get there? And the worst part about my experience was that I guess in my head, I always feel like women should stick together, and it was a woman doctor. And when I had questions about it, this was during 2020, by the way. When I had questions about it, I was only in the room by myself. I was supposed to have a biopsy, which did not work. And she gave me a brochure and said, we'll talk about it next time. And then she left the office. And I sat there crying because I was so scared already. And then to not be able to ask my doctor questions and have to come back the next time. And I ran out to the parking lot. And my mom was there at the time, and I was crying, and she was just saying, like, what happened? What happened? And I just could not. And now we're in 2025, and I'm trying to go through this again because ovarian cancer runs in my family. But I'm so scared. I'm so scared because I don't want to not be here, if that makes sense. I don't want to not be here because I'm too afraid to go to a local doctor. And I don't want to not be here because I'm worried that if they do something, it may be more of what benefits them versus what benefits me. So I just wanted to say thank you, because you're helping me to connect with other people, and I can try to find those resources and see what the differences are and really do my research before I just subject my body out there. I don't want to be a number. I want to be heard. I want to be heard. So thank you again. I hope this didn't put a damper on anyone else's day. I just really wanted to say that. So I appreciate it.
I would have these conversations all day, every day. This is important, incredibly important. I appreciate your bravery and in your support for what we do here. Please come back, Kale. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
All right. Have a good day. Be safe out there. Again, thinking back to something that Francis said, and then KL confirmed when Francis brought up the stats about New York. I think people live in this bubble that just because a place might seem or appear or is in fact liberal doesn't mean that these problems don't exist. We live in a country that was built on racism. Period. Full stop. I've said this many times before. You've heard it say me. You've heard me say it. A system built by people who look like me, to benefit people who look like me, to protect people who look like me. So just because it's New York, just because they might have elected a democratic socialist mayor, just because they have policies that might lean more liberal, doesn't change the fact that racism is everywhere. Everywhere. It is systemic. The entire system is built on it. Period. The question is, for you guys, what are you going to do? It's one thing to be against it. You need to be anti. So that means getting out of your comfort zone. From my perspective, I can only speak for me. That means accepting the fact that you have privilege, and what are you going to do about it and with it? When I say do something at the end of the show, guys, I don't say that just for words. I fucking mean it. What are you going to do? And I love the great examples that Francis gave of things that you can do. True advocacy and true support and true accomplishment happens under the cover of darkness. If you're doing things to get attention, if you're doing things to get the pat on the back, then you're just as bad as people who aren't doing anything. We don't do things for praise. I don't give a shit who knows. I don't care. That's not the point. And again, not about me. This is about the things that we all can do. We've had hundreds of conversations about things that maybe most of us who live in our privilege without realizing it would never have ever learned. The courage of Francis and KL and others to come up here and try to say, listen, here's somebody who's talking about this shit. I'm going to use his platform, and I'm graciously going to don't it to remind people what's at stake. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to say this. It's going to take a lot of work and a lot of self-reflection and a lot of looking in that mirror and seeing all the ugly ass shit that stares back at you. That's the only way it's going to be resolved. And it takes courage, friends. You may not see it that way, but you've got to be willing to accept it. So when we're critical of language that people use, when we call people out, when we say, when people come in and say females, and I'm like, no, it's women, and locker room humor, and all this kind of shit. Now that people can say, this politically correct, fuck that. I'm tired of people just, I don't know. People have to get real. It's the only way we're gonna fix it. People have to get real and do more than just enough. Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Fine, thank you. What's on your mind, Unscripted?
So, I went through hell with the medical system. And a bit of a trigger warning with the child loss. I started feeling ill around 2014, 2015, just constant stomach pains. And like I always had abdominal pain, but like I actually took time off work, which really impacted my career trajectory. And just in and out of hospital, talking to endocrinologists, doctors of all kinds. And they would always say, oh, just lose weight. Or things like, once you have a baby, it'll be better, you know? Your whole, system will kind of reset itself. And so, you know, I just kept on trying. I kept on going to doctors and just finding out, you know, what can I do? And there was nothing. And mind you, majority of the doctors were whitey men. And only in 2018, when it was to the point of like I couldn't move, I went into the ER one night, and it was a doctor of color, a woman of color. Instead of saying what the other doctors have said throughout the years, this is 2018, throughout the years they had always said, we can't find anything, so therefore there's nothing wrong with you. Zombified, the first time I got told just to lose weight, I was 38 kilograms. I don't know what that is in pounds. If somebody can look it up, 38 kilograms. That was when I was told, just lose weight. Instead of saying, you know, we can't find anything, so therefore there's nothing wrong with you, she said, I can't find what's wrong with you, therefore we're going to keep looking. And she found a 10-pound tumor wrapped around my uterus. And once that was found, I was also pregnant. So I had to make a choice. I had to make a choice to remove the tumor and abort the baby. Or I could go through with the pregnancy and possibly unalive us both.
So your experience, as you're describing, just kind of in general, is that you experienced some of the same issues that we've been discussing today, not being believed. Is that the point you're trying to make?
Yeah, and a lot of people, I would be like, please, can we do this test? Can we do that test? Can we, at least, like, you know, admit me into hospital so we can do every test possible? And they would say no. Ultimately, what happened was I did have a miscarriage. So I think it was my little Saoirse who chose for me, essentially. I got the tumor removed, but it impacted so much of my life that I just couldn't get it. Like the loss of confidence, the loss of income, the gaslighting, the amount of therapy that I had to go through, and ultimately the loss of a child who I wanted, you know?
Of course. I appreciate you sharing your story with I appreciate you sharing your story. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So what I did was I developed something with the Department of Health here in South Africa, which is a refusal of procedure form. So when you leave the hospital against your practitioner's wishes, you have to sign a refusal of treatment form. And if you do that, then your insurance cannot pay and all of those kinds of things. I developed a form for doctors to sign on behalf of given to them by the patient, saying the patient requested these and these tests, and the doctor refused. It is a way of patients advocating for themselves officially. and that is at the moment going through approval for through the Health Professionals Board in South Africa and the Department of Health.
I love that. I love that. That's a great thing to do. That's an example of doing something to advocate for others. I mean, it seems like that's good motivation for people. Like I've always talked about how we have to advocate for ourselves and how we have to advocate for our patients. I appreciate you jumping in today and sharing your story with us. We've spoken before. I really appreciate that.
If anybody wants to do the same, please get in touch, because if the more of these kinds of things we develop, the better. Right. And it's hard because my career has never gotten back on track ever since.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and thank you again for jumping in today and sharing with us. Thank you. It seems like it's an example for others to follow. Again, thank you for being here, friend. I appreciate you.
Yes.
Have a safe day. Be good out there. Okay. All right.
You
Goodbye.
too.
I think we're going to try to do. I'll just be frank. I don't know if I could. I'll just be honest. I don't know if I could hear everyone's story today. So what I think we're going to try to do is we might do a live focusing on that. I don't mean to diminish people's feelings. Please understand. It can only take so much. I'll be honest with you. So we'll work on. I'll discuss it with the mods, and we'll talk about doing more conversations in the future. I do want to hear high level things, obviously, as we're talking about things that people are trying to do. But I'm not going to be able to handle everybody's. I don't think I'm going to be able to handle everybody's individual story. I'm not trying to be. I'm not trying to dismiss anyone. I'm just. I hope you understand. Didn't come out the way I wanted it to, but I hope you understand.
Good morning.
Gen X, hi.
Hey. And I just heard what you said, and that's a great boundary you have because it's impactful. And I just want to say thank you. I know we spoke before and these recent times. Yeah, it's painful. It hurts, and I'll be honest, I was listening to the survivor speaking in front of the Capitol. I can't listen to it because, and I'm going to speak very, very high level. I'm a survivor of various forms of abuse, sexual coercion, all that. And I've been reaching out to law enforcement since 2019, and it wasn't addressed. And my mental health was attacked and threatened, and now it's being used against me by a sheriff's department out of Ohio. And if what's happening right now, what we're all seeing, if anyone in these comments thinks it can't impact you, you are wrong. It can. And how you can stop that is to listen to this. Listen to us. We are telling the truth. I just called Representative DeLuzio's office. And, sorry, it's a lot. It is. It's, it's triggering. It's Medina County. And I'm speaking up. I don't care anymore. Medina County Sheriff's Department in Ohio. You be careful out there if you're out in Ohio. I'm serious. But I'm actually not in DeLuzio's district. I'm in Summer Lee's district, so I got to call her office. But and I'll just speak very high level. They want me to look for work, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. I'm a recruiter. I work in HR. I've been looking for work for 2 years. I resigned from my corporate job to take care of myself, and it's being used against me. So this isn't just, and I was listening to one of the survivors on there, and it resonated. She struck a nerve with me, and this is happening in every corner of our country. And back in the Watergate times, the famous saying, the cover up is worse than the crime. And this is not political. And I didn't realize this. One of the survivors has been abused since 1991. This spans 5 presidential administrations. This is big. And I just want to thank you very much for giving us a voice. Being the biggest thing you can ever do with a survivor is to have that person be seen and heard. And this is going back to Les Wexner's businesses with Abercrombie and Fitch. Yes, it was Medina County, Terry Grice over there. There's a whole thing. And, my profile was private because I was gang stalked on this. I don't want to get into all that, but Yeah, it's you mean something, Steve, like just, allowing us to come up. And I think that's a great idea you have, is to have a live for us to, like a support community. It means a lot.
Yeah.
And we aren't political they're not, I shouldn't say we, but, these survivors aren't to be used politically. They were little girls and they're women and they're speaking up. And there was men that happened to too. So thank you guys so very much. And I probably will get a GoFundMe going here soon. I'm just trying to get back to work and everything, So thank you very, very much. You mean a lot.
Sure thing. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, obviously we have a lot. We have a lot of work to do. We always talk about how we've got. I don't even know how to say it. How we've just there's so much work to do, and I just think people will just wander aimlessly, feeling like and this is a call out to people on the left, right? And I've said this before. You guys know me. I'm a straight shooter. It's the entitlement that we often get, right? Having a bumper sticker on your car is not enough. Going to a rally is not enough. Hanging a flag is not enough. Because we always struggle with those people who don't have empathy, right? We talk about this, and we always joke in our community about how we would form the island of empaths. We would not get anything done, but we take care of each other. That's for sure. So we have to carry it. We have to carry more of it. Those of us that are truly believe in the protection and the support and the advocacy and the accompliceshipness, if that's a word, of others, we have to do more of it. Right? We have to do more of it. It's on us to carry more water. It's on us to be kinder. Right? Now, sure, we have a job to do. We've got to report on the news. It's people come here every single day, and that's what they expect from us. And we'll do that. But it's more than just that. I hope people, my mods know this. This is who I am when I get off of this space. It doesn't change. I hope people will believe that, but it's just I hope people understand that. I put my money where my mouth is. It's never been about me, ever. It's never been about me. I think I realized the privilege that I have. Let me rephrase. I wish I realized the privilege that I have earlier in my life. But I realized it when my son was born, my first. So I was 25 years ago, right? That's the first time I realized it. When I really realized, damn, I have got a lot of privilege, and how am I going to use it? And I've tried every single day. Have I made mistakes? Absolutely. Have I misspoke on things? Absolutely. Have I fallen into some of the same old traps? Absolutely. But we're out here working. We're out here trying to do our best, right? And that's all we can ask for anybody. But are you doing enough? Is your best the bare minimum? Ask yourself that. And then how then do we push to get more? And how do we push to get to be better? And how does that do something mindset carry more than just words?
Hi.
Makes sense. Hi there. How are you?
So I'm not going to tell a story, although I'm sure we all have them. But as a white woman who has grown up in the South, I was raised conservative. I was raised Christian. And by meeting diverse women over my time having children in wonderful online communities, I have grown a lot. But I do think as white people, we have to realize that even if we are not racist, we still have a lot of internalized racism that we have to work on. And a lot of that comes with believing Black women when they tell us, believing Black people when they tell us they're experiencing things that we don't ever see because we have a privilege that they don't. And I've seen a lot of MAGA in the comments kind of talking about different things. And a lot of those people are white, and they're never going to understand what Black people experience in this country ever, because they've never had to deal with that internalized racism that we as a country have been built on since basically the beginning of time. So, and I know we're all listening, and I really appreciate all the Black women who have gotten up here and told their stories today. It's very moving and touching. I've been fortunate to have 2 children and been listened to every step of the way. When I've had complications, my doctors did immediate testing, put me right in the hospital, listened to me, did everything they could to determine what was going on. But even our medical systems have racism built into them. And the way that we get past that is everyone believing Black women and Black people when they tell us that they're experiencing that internalized and systemic racism. And I know there's MAGA in here because I've seen them in the comments, or Republicans who don't necessarily have that. Those people that they've spoken to and heard their stories and open their mind up to actually realize that, like, yes, you could have lived a life that's not privileged, but you still have that privilege of being believed. Especially if you're a white man, you go into the doctor, they're going to believe anything you tell them. And that level of belief goes down with gender and race and your economic status. So, I just think it's really important to remember that when we're having these conversations, is that we white people in general have internalized racism that we have to work through and battle with on a regular basis to make sure that we're believing these victims of things that they go through just because we didn't experience them.
It's a good call out. I appreciate that perspective. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for coming up. Appreciate it. You got it. One thing I've noticed in this conversation this morning, I haven't heard from any men. And I can think there's a variety of reasons why, because, I hope that I've seen a lot of people I see regularly. I see a lot of men sitting here listening, which is fucking great. Need it. Need men to listen. Need men to really listen, because it is our fault. Period. Stop trying to massage it away. And I know that there's a lot of men in our community who've had these long, hard conversations, right? And they've said, yeah, I want to do more, or feeling bad. It's not meant to shame. It's meant to remind that we're the ones who've got the power to fix it. Use the privilege that we have. And you should be listening. And you should be in spaces where you can learn. When we had, when Francis was on with us earlier, I saw a lot of comments of people have no idea that this even existed, right? Had no idea that these, of course you wouldn't. Why would you know that? Doesn't mean that it hasn't existed forever. The question is, what do you do with that information now, right? How do you process it? What do you do with it? Who are the people that you're going to identify? Who do you want to be an accomplice with? It's more than just the words. It's about the actions. And I just want people to really, really, really take that to heart. And I want to acknowledge that there's marginalized communities. When we talk specifically about marginalized communities, I try to use that, and maybe it's insensitive, I try to use that as a blanket for every marginalized group. Whether it be the disabled community, the elderly community, the poor community, the queer community, the Black and brown community. I don't mean women. I don't mean to miss anybody. Please understand that I'm trying to be inclusive of all. Fire Breather, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine, thank you. What's on your mind?
Well, I tried to get up yesterday, but I ended up having to go to work. So this is a little bit about yesterday, but still a little bit about today. But I thought of, the guy was starting to say, like, oh, well, why don't these women come forward, like, along, like, earlier in the journey? Like, why don't they say anything right when SA happens? So I kind of thought of, like, a little argument to that maybe you could use. I think maybe it's along just something that they could understand. It's like along the same line as, like, the men who don't want to talk about their trauma, and we're talking about, like, veterans in particular, but a lot of men don't want to talk about their trauma. So I think it's along those same lines. So maybe it's just verbiage that they could understand. I also wanted to, and disclaimer, I haven't listened to it yet, but I saw one of my favorite podcasts called this is actually happening, put out an episode that they have an Epstein survivor talking on there. So that might be really interesting.
Yeah, I heard that there was, and my apologies for not carrying it. I heard that there were some survivors that were speaking this morning. Didn't mean to ignore it. Just we were into a conversation. I'm sure we'll get a recap over the course of the day. But I appreciate sharing that. Thank you for your comments on that, Fire Breather. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me up.
You got it. Have a good day. It's funny that something she said. I've been working on a book for a long time. I've got like 5 or 6 different stories. Some are fiction, some are non. But this whole better man thing has been in my head for a long time, and I've been writing about that and trying to use it as an opportunity to remind men that, we've got so much work to do, but it's got to start with realizing that we have so much work to do. So it's kind of the story of my life, right? It involves my house when I was growing up, where there was a lot of violence, and this challenging dynamic of relationship that I had with my dad. While I despised him at times because of the things he did to my mom, but yet he was my biggest fan, loudest voice from the crowd, my coach, and then, watching my mother go through what she had to go through, and literally physically standing between him and her, and all those dynamics, and how you have societal stigmas that, if you're the child of an abuser, you're going to grow to be an abuser, of which I am not. And, you push back on that societal stigma, and then other men feeling like they're in the same position, or they've been subjected to the patriarchy that they're told to be a particular way. So these conversations always remind me of that. All I'm asking for, I'm not going to speak for women. All I'm asking for is men to realize it and to just be better. I'm not saying perfect. I'm not saying finished. I'm saying better. 1% better tomorrow than you are today. I don't think that's a lot to ask, considering what we have subjected women to for is going back to the apple. And it's not going to get any better. It's not on them to fix us. It's on us to fix us, the collective. And it starts with this right here. It starts from this.
Hello, friend. How are you doing?
Hi. I'm all right.
It's been an emotional morning so far, hasn't it? And I've appreciated hearing the stories. I think that we definitely should dedicate a stream to hearing about stories, both medical misogyny, medical misogynoir, and also medical ableism, because that is on the rise too. It's quite a rabbit hole when you start going down that path, but it's so important. I'm a disabled woman, for those that are in chat and don't know, and it's frustrating hearing all of these things that are preventable. So it is always good to listen to people that have stories to tell about this kind of problem, particularly around childbirth. It is the one time that we should be most protected, and I think that it's always hard to hear, but always so necessary. But the other important thing for you and for all of the mods and for chat, all of us, is to remember to be kind to ourselves today. These are difficult stories to hear. They should be difficult to hear. And as such, we also need to be looking out for our own well-being, because it's hard. It's tough. And I appreciate you very much for giving space on your platform for these kind of conversations. And I hope that we can start to utilize the Discord to have conversations like this, to do little workshops and things for those that want to hear more. Because I think that sometimes we want to be giving these kind of topics our attention, but we are not in a position to have the bandwidth to do so. And so scheduling times for these kind of conversations can be a good way to counteract that, I think, and a healthy way to go around things, because we all need to keep our well-being and our strength to keep pushing and resisting this fight, which is crucial.
Yeah.
If anything,
Agreed.
Today's conversations should make aware to all of us, it is crucial. And just because I'm in British, we have the same problems here. This has been a huge issue over here too, in terms of medical misogyny and medical racism. And my heart is breaking thinking about some of the experiences our callers have had. And I think that, I'd like to hear more. Let's schedule something and let's do it in an environment and a space where we are all prepared.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll figure that out.
Yeah,
right.
It's necessary, but sometimes we also need to just go, that's a lot to take in. I need to take a step back and let that sit with me for a while before going on. And I think that's something that we should all do today, is just sit with this and figure out ways to go forward. I don't know if you saw in the mod chat, Brooke, Cabin Mum, amazing, said, my senator is a black woman, and I felt compelled to email her after that conversation with Francis to tell her about it in Facts Live, and how, as a white woman, I need to hear how I can support. I also encouraged her to author a bill addressing the treatment of black women and babies in hospitals. That is the prime example of doing something, chat.
Agreed. Thank you for jumping in today. I appreciate you, as always.
Appreciate you too, Steve. Take care of you.
All right. Okay. Bye. I have to wrap a little early today, guys. This just hits today. I always advocate for people making sure that you're protecting your peace, and I just got to protect mine at the moment. Just because of these conversations, I'm not afraid to have any conversation, but there's a limit. And I don't want to dismiss anybody. And I'm sorry if you didn't get a chance to come up today, but I got to end early. So I will plan on seeing you guys tomorrow morning, 8:00 Eastern time. We'll recap. We'll probably get back into these topics a little bit because they're important. I love you all very, very much. Mods, you guys are the best. And in true